Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today for Take the Work Out of Networking. My name is Stacey Albanese, and I am an Associate Director of Alumni Relations here at Montclair State University. The Office of Alumni Relations provides benefits and services, communications, and events and activities to our over 110,000 alumni. To learn more about these services, I encourage you to visit our website, montclair.edu/alumni, or give our office a call at 973-655-4141. All of our contact information and social media channels are listed on the screen, so feel free to reach out. We love hearing from our alumni. And now I'll turn the presentation over to Mallory.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, I should say, and welcome to today's webinar, Take the Work Out of Networking. My name is Mallory Jones, and I'm a learning and development professional for MK Jones Consulting. And I feel when it comes to managing your life at work, and all that comes along with it, meetings, presentations, managing up and managing down, managing your peers, my belief is that you know more than you think you do. So I like to help clients tap into what they already know and help them apply it to their career development. And I do this because when I first entered the workforce, and even in instances while I was in the middle of my career, I wish I had some direction. I wish I had someone to talk to. And so I like to give back and help others to avoid any unnecessary stress. Before becoming a consultant, I worked for the City of New York for about 20 years, the last 10 years as a learning and development program director, where I was responsible for the development and management of leadership programs. And I look forward to working with you this afternoon and helping you to see that you know more than you already think you do about networking. Maureen?
At Montclair State University. As a certified life and communications coach, I'm passionate about coaching individuals and achieving their highest potential and personal greatness through the art of communication, which of course, as we all know, is critical to an individual's success, not only in life, but in networking. My corporate career spans over a period of 31 years with Prudential Financial. I earned my Bachelor of Science in Business Administration from Caldwell College, my Advanced Communicator Silver, and Advanced Leadership Bronze from Toastmasters International. And I am an IPAC certified coach. And for those of you not familiar with IPAC, that is the Institute for Professional Excellence in Coaching. And now I'll hand it back to Mallory.
Thanks, Maureen. So before we get into the presentation, I just wanted to give you an idea of what you would expect today. This afternoon, we're going to discuss reframing your thoughts about an approach to networking. How does that sound? I see I have 16 people, so now's a good time to practice using your chat box just to let me know that you can hear me and that you're following everything that I'm saying. The presentation will focus on the tools that you can use to reap the most benefit from networking situations. And Maureen and I feel that by understanding you and what you have to offer, you'll be able to easily convey your strengths, talents, and interests in a way that will help you to connect with others to develop a healthy networking relationship. The session will last about an hour, and you'll have the opportunity to submit questions by typing them into the questions pane. And you can send your questions at any time during the presentation, and we'll collect and address them at the end of each section. Okay? All right, so I'm going to start off by throwing out a question to you, and then you can just type them in the answers into the questions pane. We often have many thoughts about networking and what it means to network. And so my question to you is, when you think about networking, what comes to mind? What feelings come up for you when you're thinking about networking? Okay, so does anybody have any ideas, thoughts about networking? All right, so a lot of people are quiet. So some things that come to mind for me, networking can feel a little bit insincere. And a lot of times people feel that extroverts make the best networking. Other people feel that networking requires just handing out a lot of business cards. If I'm handing out a whole bunch of business cards, then I'm obviously networking, right? And networking is solely transactional. I do for you and you do for me. And a lot of times I've had especially early on in my career, I've had these same thoughts and feelings about networking. And I remember a time when I was attending a networking event, and most of the people at the networking event were professional speakers. And so I would describe the exchanges as a little bit insincere because I was mirroring those folks that I was talking to, and they were professional speakers and extroverts, and I am not a professional speaker, and I'm very much an introvert. And in that moment, what I was thinking really didn't align with what I was saying. Some networking events that I've gone to were a little bit unproductive. I exchanged several business cards, but if I hadn't really developed a relationship to gain any traction on a relationship that I've developed, then the networking event to me felt a little bit not productive. I only followed up with one person on LinkedIn, maybe. And networking events can feel transactional. So, and I'm sure you may be able to relate to going to a networking event and speaking with someone, and that person that you're speaking to has their gaze fixed on another person they would like to connect with. And I felt that if what I was saying didn't align with what the person wanted, then the networking event didn't really seem to be very fruitful for me. And it was a turn off, and I felt a little annoyed and put off by the whole networking process. So we don't want those feelings to prevent us from getting the most out of any of the connections that we make. Networking events can feel a bit unpleasant or overwhelming and somewhat frustrating. And when we view networking only as an opportunity that someone out there can help me find the thing that I need, and it doesn't come to pass, then some of these emotions and feelings can emerge. If it's about me and what I want, there's no room for anyone else to establish a relationship with you. Or if I'm very busy rehearsing my lines and carefully choosing my words, if there's a moment where my thoughts and my words aren't in alignment, it's going to reflect in my body and the energy that I give off to others, and it'll expose you in the conversation every single time. So these are a few reasons why people are uncomfortable and feel hopeless in networking situations and find it difficult to connect and engage with others. Some other obstacles that I've noticed as I'm doing research or was doing research to prepare for this webinar, keeping the conversation going after the initial introduction. That tends to be a big problem. How do you find additional ways to connect with others? Noisy spaces. I've attended many networking events at bars and restaurants, I'm sure you have too, where between the music and the drinks and the cramped space, it's very difficult to hold the conversation, let alone stay engaged. Some other obstacles, unstructured events, or even attending the wrong event. As I mentioned, I'm very introverted, and so I really like a lot of structure when I'm attending an event. And sometimes it's difficult to navigate if there's no structure involved. And not every networking event is right for you. It really helps to be strategic when you choose an event. And I'm not suggesting that if you are a professional speaker that you only attend events with other professional speakers. But what I am suggesting is once you find the value in what you bring to the table, you may be able to identify a need for other groups. And when you go to those networking events, you can connect a lot easier. And another obstacle is really going into an event and not having a purpose. And I've done this on occasion. Someone invites you to attend an event and you're really excited, free wine and cheese, and you didn't necessarily prepare, and you really haven't given thought to who you should connect with in the room or who may want to connect with you. So those are some obstacles that I can think of. Are there any others that you may be able to think of? You can feel free to type it in the chat box if you have anything that comes to mind. Okay. All right. So what I would like you to remember, though, is the definition of networking. You should remember that the definition of networking is the exchange of information and services among individuals, groups, or institutions, specifically the cultivation of productive relationships for employment or business. And so in reframing our approach to networking, we need to focus, Maureen and I feel, on the relationship aspect of your connections. It's in the establishment of relationships where the magic happens. And to cultivate a productive relationship, it helps to first know your strengths, your talents, and your interests. And this will help you be secure and confident in what you bring to the table, knowing this information. So, and in a position of confidence, you'll be able to help others and enhance their lives, and then they, in turn, can help you. So, at this time, I want to turn it over to Maureen, and she's going to share some information with you that will assist you in becoming more confident and comfortable in your networking relationships and help you deepen those networking relationships. Maureen?
Well, thank you, Mallory. Okay, so another question. What percentage of positions are obtained through networking? Some people may think it's 50%, 60%. Well, I can tell you it's a whopping upwards of 85%. That's incredible, isn't it? So there are 3 actions that you can take immediately to develop and deepen relationships with others and be included in that 85 percentile. The first is know yourself. So Aristotle said, knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom. The second is identify existing and potential contacts. Who do you know? And the third is develop a plan and then take action. So let's look at first. Know yourself. Think about it. How well do you really know yourself? What do you know about yourself? Take a moment and just write down some thoughts, just words that come to mind. I will tell you, answering these questions thoroughly will take effort and time because each one of you is a talented and complex individual. And there are a lot of things to consider, clarify, and collect. At times, we may take our talents and our gifts for granted because they come so easily to us, don't they? Or on the other end of the spectrum, we may overestimate our strengths and skill sets. So when you're thinking about your talents, your skills, and of course even your weaknesses, it's important to be objective and open. Be honest with yourself. Ask yourself, what would someone else say about me? A really great tool that you can use to get you started on this process is a SWOT analysis. And I'm sure you've all heard of SWOT. It's strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And Mind Tools offers a really helpful form that provides guidance in helping you to identify these critical aspects. So choose one of the questions from each of the boxes here and write down a response. Again, just right off the top of your head, don't overthink it, don't discount or throw away the first thought that comes to your mind because you think you have something better. Just have a free flow of consciousness. That's the best way to approach this. Just be very open and let it all come out because all the answers are within you. Again, when answering these questions, try and be relaxed and be objective. So we'll give you a couple minutes for that.
Yeah, Maureen, I really like this Mind Tool link because it's a great resource and it thoroughly outlines how to do a SWOT analysis. And as you mentioned, the group may be familiar with the exercise because it's often used in organizations as one of the first steps in developing strategy. And now you see the SWOT being used more and more as a personal development tool, whether it's in networking like we're talking about, developing your career, making an argument to get a promotion. Let me see, talking points for a job interview. We all get that question, talk about your strengths and your weaknesses. So if you have taken the time to do this exercise to prepare for that job interview, it will really help you gain some valuable insights and better prepare you to answer this question or any questions more effectively.
Great. Thank you, Mallory, for that. I'd like to offer an example of a SWOT analysis for Ray Requester. He happens to be an RFP writer. So for Ray, his strengths are he has, of course, strong writing skills, he has to be organized, and he also has expertise in XY database software programs. Some of Ray's weaknesses are he lacks confidence in making decisions. He doesn't take initiative in leading meetings, and he has a minimum amount of experience in responding to complex public RFPs. Some opportunities he has, he can enroll in an MBA program. There is a job opening in the marketing department of his company, and he has a contact. He could also think about streamlining and automating approval and review processes. Threats, well, there's always the threat of being outsourced, and that is a job that could easily be outsourced. Demand requests for RFPs could start declining, and they could find ways of other ways to gather that information. And finally, the all-pervasive budget cuts for education and training. Now, once you've completed this exercise, use this information to share what you have to offer or to begin talking about yourself. Make this information part of your everyday language. It's really important that it becomes a part of you and you're comfortable talking about it. Talking about yourself. Some of us have a problem with that. A good way to share this information, I always think it's in a fun, easy, and safe way, is to use personal stories to highlight strengths or successes that you've experienced in life. Telling stories is an excellent way to engage an audience. I ask you, who doesn't love a good story? Think about it this way. When crafting your story, think about the structure. Who are your characters? What's the conflict? And of course, what is the resolution or outcome? It's really important that you paint a picture in your audience's mind with details and descriptive language that engage the senses. Once you've developed your stories, start telling them to others, family, friends, neighbors, anybody who will listen. You'll soon become more and more comfortable with your material, and ultimately, the more comfortable and open your audience will be with you. So it's by sharing your information with others through story or otherwise, you have two things: an opportunity to engage and connect with another person, which means developing and deepening that relationship. And that individual will have a clear understanding of what you have to offer and how it can benefit the most important person in that room, and that would be the person that you're speaking to. Some of this information can also be used to construct or become part of your elevator pitch. Now, of course, you probably all know an elevator pitch is a 30-second commercial about you, and Stacey was nice enough to give us hers. That is, for the department, that is delivered to another person or group. A good example of the elements of an effective elevator pitch should include name, your skill or skills, your goal or ask, and why. Why are you giving it in the first place? Again, there are great templates that will assist you in preparing an elevator pitch at Idealist Careers. The URL will probably come up in the chat box for you. And so I would suggest, if you have an elevator pitch that you're happy with, great. Why don't you pull down the template and apply it to the template and see how it fits in. Maybe there's something you want to tweak or add. A good example, there's a great example of an elevator pitch from Idealist Careers as it relates to Katie, a communications professional. And Katie says about herself, I am a communications professional with a knack for persuasive storytelling. Considering my colleagues often complimented me for my thoughtful and engaging presentations, I'm looking for insight as to how I can best position myself for a role in production or videography at a social impact startup. Because I'm inspired by documentaries, I want to help companies express their missions in compelling and relatable ways in the age of social media. So, next point, identify existing and potential conflicts.
So
Contacts,
Maureen,
conflicts.
before
I'm so,
I'm sorry, Maureen, I have
yeah.
a question actually before you move on to the next point.
Oh,
When you
great.
were talking about telling your story,
Yeah.
sometimes when we tell our stories, we tend to focus on our pain points and we
Mm-hmm.
say things like, I was downsized, or I've been looking for work for X amount of time, haven't had much success, or let's say I went to school in field X, but I want to get a job in field Y, and we sort of use that as a disclaimer when we're doing any sort of networking or connecting with others. I wanted to know, is there a way that while you're networking, you can honor your feelings and also tell a constructive story that may not put off another person?
You know what? That's a great question, Mallory. I think it's really, 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 really important that you acknowledge your feelings and your thoughts and your feelings and your pain, as it relates to a downsizing or other experience when you were leaving the position. So before you go into any networking experience or you're communicating with another person or giving their elevator pitch, it's first great to get clear of those thoughts and really acknowledge them, understand them, talk out loud to yourself, tell yourself how you're feeling in that moment, that it is painful, it was hard to leave that job, or it was painful to be cast out from the position if it was a downsizing or other circumstance. And then when you're delivering your elevator pitch, you always want to, of course, make sure that you talk highly about your previous employer, no matter what the circumstance was. I think it's a good idea to put it into perspective. So you can talk about, yes, your job was eliminated and it was something that came as a surprise, or you didn't see it coming, and that while it was a surprise and things like that happen in life, you viewed it as a positive opportunity to pursue something else or to use the skills and talents that you've developed in that position to apply them to another firm where it's a better fit. So I think it is always a good idea to acknowledge the fact that you were downsized or right-sized or upsized, and that, but because of that, this was the reality, this is what happened, and as a result of it, I have found that there are additional opportunities out there, and I'm looking forward to my future. So you always want to put in a forward-looking statement too, and always keep it positive and as much lighthearted as you can. So thank you for that question, Mallory. I think that was a great question.
Okay, so for example, I could say, as you were mentioning, if I was downsized, I worked for Jones and Company, a very great company, by the way, for 15
Yeah.
years. And when the company downsized, I was let go. It's a challenge to find something new, and I have to make adjustments in my approach to finding a job. But this time off has allowed me to explore other opportunities that I normally would not have considered, something such as going into business for myself. Would that be something that one could say that would be productive and also honoring your feelings?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's perfect.
Okay.
You're speaking straight from your heart. These are your feelings. This is what you feel about yourself. And yeah, forward looking, positive. That's what people want to hear, positive. They want to hear that there is something to look forward to. We all have we all have stress in our life. We all have situations that come up out of nowhere, and in an instant your life can change. It's not that those things won't happen, they will. The difference is how we react to them, how we view them, and then the steps that we take to recover or we move on from them. And it's very easy to sit and say all those things and take all those steps, but it's certainly different when you're right in the middle of it. And I've found in my own personal experience when I'm under great stress or in pain that the best thing is to acknowledge it. Again, acknowledge the pain, acknowledge the stress, say out loud, this is what I'm going through, this is what I'm feeling. Once you acknowledge it out loud, that pain and that stress doesn't have as much power over you, which allows you to move forward and to get into a better mindset or frame of mind, or just to gather more strength to continue that journey, maybe through that pain. Maybe there's more pain ahead, but you know you're going to get through it. So it's, as I said, very easy to do. Very easy to do. I wish it was easy to do. No, it's easy to say, hard, difficult to do. But we all get through it, and we all come out stronger on the other side because it changes us, and change is inevitable in life. So shall we move on to identify existing and potential contacts? No others. I love this proverb, this African proverb. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go with others. So now that you've done your SWOT analysis, or if you've begun your SWOT analysis and you know yourself, who else do you know? Who can you rely on to take you far in life? Those would be, I would think, family and friends, coworkers, people at your gym or religious institution, people with whom you volunteer. As you know, networking is not just about connecting and deepening a relationship with one or a few people, but also connecting with those individuals' networks. One of the most powerful networking tools today is, of course, as you probably all know, is LinkedIn. We can use it not only to connect and maintain a relationship with our immediate network, but also beyond to their network. Using this tool, we can easily identify people who are in industries, companies, professions that we aspire to be in. Who may know someone in our immediate network, and finally, who may be able to assist us in obtaining that next position. So to begin, start with the end in mind. Where do you want to be? What do you want to do? Go to your LinkedIn profile and begin searching for people who are in the company you want to work for, the industry you're or the industry you're interested in entering. Make sure you capture those critical pieces of information for each and every person. Their name, their education, contact information, accomplishments, volunteer groups, and most importantly, connections. Who do you know that knows that person? With this information you've gathered, first of all, again, about yourself, and with the effort you have put forth to get to know others, you're now ready to make that important connection, whether it's through email or in person. So let's talk about meeting someone in person. When you're meeting someone for their first time, it's ideal to get into a questioning mode. So when you go up to someone, ask yourself, what's interesting about this person? Now, there's a couple of reasons why this is helpful. The first is, just as Mallory had said in the beginning, whatever is happening on the inside is typically manifesting itself on the outside. So when we move into that curious state, our body will become more relaxed and open. If we are defensive and anxious, our body will become tense and closed off. The second thing is, being curious helps to ease the nerves because it gives the mind something to focus on. How do you network in groups? Exact same way. As we did it with LinkedIn, you identify those groups that align with your values, goals, interests. Could be social, political, organized networking, referral groups. And of course, it's best to focus on those groups that are well established. And remember, networking is not about what the group can do for you or what an individual can do for you, but what you can offer to that individual or that group. So to illustrate the power of networking in organizations, I'd like to share my own experience as a member of Toastmasters International, and I believe you'll probably get the URL for that. For those of you who are not familiar with Toastmasters, Toastmasters is a nonprofit educational organization based in California that operates clubs around the world to help members improve their communication, public speaking, and leadership skills. Well, I joined my first club in 2005. The meeting time, noon to 1 p.m. on Thursdays, and place, 5 floors above my office, fit perfectly into my schedule and life. And because it was a club that was sponsored by my company, it was closed to the public. So I was interacting, connecting, and networking with other members of the firm in many different positions. It ranged from the chief ethics officer to executive assistants and business groups, individual insurance to international. There were many opportunities within the club to serve as a leader, club officer, fulfilling a meeting role, or being a mentor. A mentor or experienced member would be matched with a brand new member to familiarize that person and assimilate the member into the club and the overall program. It was through this relationship I have had the greatest opportunity to connect and engage with other members, and many of which have developed into lasting and personal relationships and friendships. It was through one of these relationships that led me to the position here at Montclair State University. I'd left my corporate career at the end of 2015 and was looking to transition into higher education. I knew it would be a challenge because my only experience has been in corporate, over 31 years, again, with the same company. I was having a conversation with one of my former mentees and now my friend, and telling her about my desire to work in a college or university. She mentioned to me she had a friend who was a career services director at a local university, and she said, I'd be happy to connect you with them. I said, great. I connected with him. I contacted him. I set up a meeting, and I talked to him about my aspirations and my challenges because of working in corporate. He said he offered me an opportunity to volunteer in his office, which was wonderful. It was in August of 2016. I began volunteering there in his office, just 2 days a week, 4 hours each day. And I absolutely loved it. Not only did it provide me insight and experience into this new culture, but it also confirmed what I already believed in my heart. And this is where I wanted to be. I wanted to be in a university. I wanted to be surrounded by people who were there to learn. I wanted to be surrounded by young people who were just, coming to college, thinking about their future, or ready to embark on their career, their life. And I felt as though being where I was in my life, I felt I had something to offer. So all that was validated and confirmed to me, again, what I already knew. While I was there, I continued to apply for positions at other universities and colleges. And then one day in October of 2016, I received an email requesting a phone interview with the chair of the religion department. Next, I was called for an in-person interview, and shortly thereafter, I was offered a position in the department. I started my new career here at MSU in November of 2016, and I could not be happier. And I will add this. The director was one of my references that I listed on my application, and the chair actually called him and asked him, and I believe he had mentioned to me that, I think she was concerned, and legitimately so, about my background, 31 years in corporate. And because of that experience, I had it at the university, because of my relationship with the director. He said, yes, there should be more, we'll have no problem fitting in with your culture and dealing with the students. So it was, again, a great overall experience. And that is a great example of the power of networking. Plan your network and network your plan. So I love this quote by the Margaret Thatcher, former Prime Minister of Great Britain. Plan your work for today and every day, and then work your plan. Plan your work for today and every day, then work your plan. So using the information we've discussed so far, now it's time to put it into your plan and take action. So ask yourself these questions prior to a structured networking event or social function. What's my aim? What do I want as a result of this conversation? And who or what did I promise to deliver and when? And now Mallory will share her networking story, which emphasizes these points. So take it away, Mallory.
Oh, thanks, Maureen. When Maureen and I were discussing our networking stories and the stories that we wanted to share with you, the one that resonated the most with me was how I wound up here today talking to you. So I had a plan to network with others to land a full-time job. And I want you to know that I'm here today, as you know, helping you reframe your thoughts about networking. And it's important to know yourself and to identify people in your network and to develop your plan and work your plan to connect and establish relationships. But my point is, I really want to encourage you to be open to where each connection and relationship can take you. So about a little over a year ago, I mentioned I'm going to networking events and networking groups to land a full-time job. And I attended a networking group for job seekers, and I found out about this group in particular from my sister-in-law, who is an immediate contact. And she attended this particular networking group when she was in between jobs. And the group met in Maplewood. It was a really great group. I think they meet about once a month. And about 6 months in, I met someone. Her name is Casey, and she was a learning and development professional. So automatically, when we connected, we were having conversations, and we found a lot of similarities and interests in the profession that we eventually wanted to continue to work in. And so we connected. And one day after meeting, we went to lunch, and in talking about what we wanted our next job to look like and sharing our pain stories, the topic of entrepreneurship came up. And I had never really seriously considered becoming an entrepreneur. And Casey just mentioned to me, well, I belong to an entrepreneur networking group for women. It's meeting in Montclair. Why don't you drop in on one of the meetings? And so I told her I would drop in, and that's my follow-up, right? We had a connection, and I made the follow-up. And as I'm giving my elevator pitch at the meeting, I had mentioned that I was considering becoming a career coach, and I wanted to get some sort of certification. And it was in that moment, we were all sitting around in a circle, and Casey introduces me to Maureen, who had just completed her coaching certification. And so after the meeting, Maureen and I connected. And my aim or my goal in speaking to Maureen was really about learning more about the process of becoming a certified coach. And in our initial conversations, we really talked about how we can help each other grow our individual businesses. It was all about the other person. It was not about me. And the result was that we decided to work together to develop a public speaking workshop for architecture students. So it was really just this one project that we decided to talk about. And we promised to meet once a month to share ideas and ways that we can grow and develop this program. Maureen would provide coaching services to me. I would share her insights about program development with her. And we continued to work together to develop programming to where it led to us developing programs for Montclair, for Keene University, and other organizations. And so just to reiterate, my aim was to connect with Maureen to talk about becoming a certified coach. And the result of that conversation was, okay, maybe we can help each other out and offer each other some sort of support to grow our own individual businesses. And what we promised to deliver was our skill sets and our particular strengths to help the other person grow their business. But the thing that worked for us was that we were open to where the relationship took us. We weren't just stuck in finding that job or just developing my strict public speaking business. And I enjoy telling this story because it was the process that we were open to that led us to this moment right here. And it's a nice one.
I agree 100%, Mallory. That was the Maureen and Mallory, dynamic duo.
Exactly.
So
So,
follow-up. Once contact has been established, make sure to follow up on any commitments or promises. Maintaining and strengthening relationships happen over time and require time and effort. You know, if we think about relationships as similar to a flower or a vegetable garden, when you decide to create a garden, you decide what type of vegetables or flowers you'd like to grow. You prepare the soil accordingly, plant the seeds, and ensure that it gets the required amount of water and nutrients on a weekly or daily schedule. That's all that's within our control. Mother Nature, she takes care of the rest. Because we can't see what's going on just underneath the surface, you know, that is the seeds sprouting roots and moving deeper into the soil. Sometimes we can get impatient and frustrated. I know I certainly can. And this is a time when we really must dig deep and persevere with our efforts. That is watering and tending the garden and trusting the process. One day, suddenly, as if by miracle, we see that first sprout appear, don't we? And it's always fascinating to me because once I see that first one, there's about a million of them. I'm like, what happened? Where did they all come from? And as we know, that sprout continues to push up and out of the ground, getting stronger and stronger each day. So that's what happens in relationships. You may not see the roots, but they are there just underneath the surface, reaching ever deeper into another person's life. We all have an impact on one another through our words and our actions. So keep tending to and caring for your relationships. They would lead to beauty, nourishment, and job opportunities. So I think we are going to begin answering any final questions for today's presentation, unless Mallory, you want to add anything further?
so I just see that the questions were, there are some questions out there, but I'm not seeing the questions box. And so one question that I had was that you had spoke about LinkedIn, and LinkedIn is a really great tool and resource for people to use to try to connect
Yes.
with others.
Yes.
And I do meet folks that are a little bit resistant to using LinkedIn because they could be a little old school like I was before I started using it. Are there any
Yeah.
resources, any other resources that you could suggest to folks who maybe want to track or get all the information about a specific contact that LinkedIn automatically gives you, but because they're not on LinkedIn, they can't necessarily have access to it? So my question is there a tool or a template for people to use to gather the information about contacts that they want to reach out to?
That they want to reach out to, but not going through LinkedIn.
Yeah, but not going through LinkedIn.
Yeah, not going through LinkedIn. So, and this, well, you know, Google, right? If you want to know anything about anything, you Google the person or the item. I, you know, I'm putting it out there because I think that's what people do. I think that's certainly the first approach that you can take, just to find out who a little bit more about the person, a little bit of background. Everybody, I'm assuming, is probably on Facebook, so social media. You know, going on Facebook, even trying to go find out information about that person. If the person isn't on social media or LinkedIn, I think you're really pretty limited, other than, well, Google, if they're using a computer, of course, Google, you would bring up some information. I don't know of, the other thing is if you know someone who knows that person, then you just approach that person and you would ask some questions, curious questions, you know. How do you know this person? What's your relationship with them? What kind of experience have you had with them in specific instances? And that's a good way of, I think, of gathering data. Or if you know or another way is if you know if they are in a certain volunteer group or an association. I would recommend researching that association or that volunteer group.
Okay.
just to get a background on them. And I think by understanding the groups a person associates with, you get a good insight into who they are and what their interests are and what kind of person they are. So for instance, I'll go back to myself as an example as Toastmasters. Communication is very important to me. And so I'm associated with Toastmasters International, which is a group of people who come together to work on their communication and public speaking skills. And so that, I think, gives you insight into person. I think that's about all I can offer, Mallory, unless, yeah, unless you
Yeah,
can think of anything. We're so
I'm seeing
connected now.
also the company website in terms of getting information about the company is a good place to start maybe looking to see who works at that company and what role they play in the company. Career services here at Montclair State, the alumni
Mm-hmm.
office, I'm, are some good resources. And I
Oh, yeah.
remember when we were speaking earlier, Maureen, we had talked just about the old school index cards to just keep track of
Yes.
that information if you weren't necessarily that comfortable with LinkedIn, as of yet.
Yeah.
That could be a good resource or a good tool for you to use.
Absolutely, yes. If you really don't want to keep the information on your phone or the computer, then definitely yes. We were talking about that. Yeah, had discussions about that. Just the plain old little index card with your contact's name and telephone number. And also another tip: if you get a business card from someone, jot down where you met that person or something of interest about that person. That's a good tool to use for the follow-up. So if you want to follow up with that person or if you promise them something, then you have it right there. You don't have to search around for it. So always, and another tip that I had picked up from a networking event was that you keep a little plastic bag, a little Ziploc bag. So all the cards that you collect from that event, you just put them into the Ziploc bag and keep them all together. And this way they're in one place and they're not, in various pockets, or maybe, or even, heaven forbid, if you have a really important card and you put it in your pocket and you're pulling something out, that you lose it. So yeah, that's a great idea too. It's always good to keep a pen and a piece of paper handy, because you just never know when you might need it, need to jot something down or give someone some information, and you have it right there. It's easy enough.
Yes. So are there any other thoughts or questions about today's presentation? So I wanted to take a moment to thank everyone for attending today's webinar. I know one of the questions that came through was, there's some questions coming through, and people are asking if they can get access to the slides. So you can get access to the slides. They're going to be, this whole webinar was recorded and it will be archived on the YouTube channel at MSU Career Workshops. And Maureen and I will also make sure that Career Services gets a copy of the slideshow presentation at the end of the webinar. Wanted to refer back to some of the references that Maureen and I had pointed out earlier. They can really prove to be helpful to you as you plan your networking strategy. I think the last slide may have like a few of the links that we discussed. And again, they can prove to be very helpful to you. The SWOT analysis, using little templates if you're not familiar with LinkedIn or not comfortable using little index cards to make templates to keep track of your connections. Those things could be very helpful and useful to you. And should you need to contact Maureen or I for additional support or questions or anything like that, Maureen could be reached at standandspeakcoaching@gmail.com. That's standandspeakcoaching@gmail.com. And I can be reached at mkj@mkjconsulting.com. I mentioned that the webinar is recorded, and once you leave today's webinar, you'll receive a survey on the presentation. So please provide your feedback, as it will help Career Services better be able to supply useful information to you and useful webinars, and will also help Maureen and I be able to um, respond to you in a better way.
Yeah.
Okay. One last question, and Maureen, you may have, or both of us could chime in, because this is a something that's coming up a whole lot.
Yeah.
Ageism. How do you address ageism when you are networking with other people and trying to land a position? That's
Yeah.
a tough one.
That, you know what, that is a tough one. I think again I'm going to go back to the pain points and the points that we made there. The reality is you are a certain age, and the reality is, you know, that you're viewed differently by whoever is interviewing you. So I think the first thing is just acknowledging the fact that you are of a certain age group and that there will be challenges, and that you, depending on who you're speaking to, there could be certain questions that come up, or maybe the person that you're sitting across from is going to be uncomfortable, or even a networking event, people may not want to engage with you because of whatever reason, or because of your age. What I would say there is, then you, if you're picking up on those feelings, and that's what's coming across to you, then just, I wouldn't pursue the relationship or the conversation. I would just, you know, politely excuse myself, and then continue to try and speak to other people that will engage you with the conversation. And focus on your experience. So with, you know, being of a certain age, yes, you're of course you're not just entering the workforce, you've been around for a long time, but that also has its benefits. You know what, you have a lot of experience with people, with technology, with different systems and procedures. So I think focusing more on what your past experiences is, and depending on who you're speaking to. So this is another thing. You really need to focus on the person you're speaking to. Who is it that you're speaking to, and what can you offer? So if you're speaking to someone, say that you're a project manager and you want a project manager position, and you're speaking to someone who is in a Google and he's looking for a project manager. So think back on, you know, your experience as project manager. Again, use your stories. What is, you know, what kind of experience or situations have you been in that you have been able to manage or resolve successfully? And focus on that, because I'm assuming project management hasn't changed over the years. The technology may have changed, but the processes and the procedures and the skills that you used as a project manager over the years hasn't changed. Those problem solving skills, or those leadership skills, those are still in place. So try and focus on those aspects of yourself, what you bring to the table. And I would even say, if you feel that it's appropriate and that it would benefit you, acknowledge that you have been, obviously you've been in the workforce for, you know, a certain number of years. And while it may be, you know, a new person coming in, do a compare and contrast, while someone new coming into the field has certainly more ideas and is fresher and maybe more energetic, the benefit of you coming into the workforce, being of a certain age, having that experience, is you bring this to the table. So really it's just continuing to focus on the strengths and your value, and how it applies to the person that you're speaking to. What is their need, and how can you fill it? What is it that you have in your toolbox that can help that person move their project forward or make their life easier? So it's really about focusing on that, and not focusing on these other things that are completely out of your control. Again, if we go back to the garden example, there's only, you can water and nourish your garden, but then the rest is up to Mother Nature. So again, it's thinking about it that way. What is it that I have that I can offer and provide, and then letting it just be. And wherever you're supposed to be, that it will resonate, because, you know, you're not going to make friends at every single networking event. You're not going to make friends with everyone. Not everyone's going to be interested in you, but there are certain people that will be, and those are the ones that you have to focus on. So rather than you use your energy in covering a wide territory, try and be more focused and targeted. Who's here that I can speak to, who would be interested in me, where I am in my place in life, what I have to bring to the table, and who would be open to listening to that. So I think that, yeah, that's what I would suggest is,
And
as I said.
one of the things that I had thought about was New Start Career Network. When you're being targeted and focused on those groups that you would get the most out of, maybe focus on groups that offer services to workers of a certain age. So Maureen and I both are volunteer coaches at New Start Career Network, which is affiliated with another university, but they supply, I guess I want to say, support and resources for folks who were downsized and that are of a certain age, and ageism is a real concern in conversation that is happening for them. And so it's not so much that we can solve the ageism issue, but it really helps to be affiliated with a group that at least can acknowledge the very real concerns that you have about it, and that could sort of help you refocus yourself in ways that you could speak to it and overcome it, or just be a sounding board for you. So when you're networking, maybe it could help to try to connect with a group that could, at the very least, understand your very real concerns and maybe offer additional suggestions on how to address it. Or groups that are affiliated with companies that are aware of that issue and are being proactive in hiring folks that didn't just come out of college. So that's something that had just popped in my mind, Maureen, as you were talking about strategies to overcome that.
No, great suggestion.
So I did say that we would be here for an hour, and we're coming close to finishing up on that hour. So just if there aren't any more questions or thoughts, I just wanted to thank everybody for joining us this afternoon for Take the Work Out of Networking. It has been a pleasure for me, and I look forward to talking to you soon, Maureen and I, about other topics that are of interest to you.
Yes, yes, thank you everyone for joining us today. It was, as Mallory had just said, it was certainly a pleasure and honor speaking to all of you. And good luck with your networking strategies, and hope that you'll join us again in the future.